Okay. So happy Sabbath, everybody, and happy New Year. Today might be a little bit shorter than usual, just so it leaves time for conversation and questions afterwards. Today, what we're going to do is fairly simple compare and contrast. We're going to compare 1888 with 1850. Okay, so everybody knows, you can put it in the chat or you can shout out, what was the test or the issue in 1888? We'll start with easy questions. I promise you they'll get harder.
Blair Sunday bill?
Sunday. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you're in 1888 yourself, and you've just moved into a new neighborhood. And so you've invited your neighbors around, and they sit down, they get to know you, and you say, so what do you do? And they say, well, we're Catholic priests. And you say, that's very interesting. What are you working on right now? And they say, well, we're part of the National Reform Association. So we're really pushing for Sunday laws today. So you think, okay, have to live with these people for a while, next door neighbors. And they say, what about you? Do you go to church? So how do you answer? Are you going to tell them you're Seventh-day Adventist? Or are you going to hide it?
Yes.
Good. So you're going to tell them you're a Seventh-day Adventist, and they'll say, that's interesting. What do you believe? So let's jot down, what do you believe? How would you answer? Someone can just type it in the chat. Start with what SDA means. Good idea. So seventh day.
Well,
so you're going to tell them Sabbath. Okay. So you're going to tell them about the Sabbath, and you're going to tell them it's the seventh day, it's Saturday. And they're going to say, okay, is that important? You know, does God mind? You're going to tell, so we're in 1888 is what I'm getting at. What are you going to tell them that the Sabbath is? What's the test? Or are you? So what was the test in 1888? Fourth commandment. You're going to tell them it's the fourth commandment. It's important. Why is it important in 1888? Because if you go back here, I'm not sure we'd be saying the same thing. Maybe. So because of the Sunday law. So you're going to tell them it's the mark of the beast. If anyone disagrees, please say. We're just going through a make-believe conversation you're having with your neighbors. Okay, so you think we should tell them why we're called Seventh-day Adventists, that we keep the seventh-day Sabbath, and that it's actually the mark of the beast, because we're in 1888. Okay. If anyone disagrees, feel free to just type it in the chat. So they say, well, mark of the beast, wait, does that mean it's salvational? Someone's already written that it's the fourth commandment, so it is important. So then they're going to say, does that mean it's salvational? How would you answer if they asked that question?
Yes.
Yes, it's salvational.
So it's salvational. Yes, because it shows your allegiance. Good, very good. Okay, so that's meeting our neighbors in 1888. So what about if we're in 1850? What's the issue there? What's the test?
Fugitive Slave Act.
Fugitive Slave Act. So we'll say race or racism. Okay, so you've moved into your new neighborhood and you invite your neighbors around to get to know them. And you say, so what do you do? And they say, well, we own a plantation. And you say, oh, right, you know, what are you focusing on at the moment? And they say, well, we're pushing for the fugitive slave law at the moment. We're proactively doing what you do, petitioning Congress or whatever. And then they say, what about you? So basically, is it going to look any different, or are we going to go through the same process? Well, does anyone think we should do anything differently? Put it that way.
Promote equality.
Promote equality. So you might want to say, so that's a good point. You might want to say, what would we say? Oops. Actually, let's do it this way. So you might want to say you're anti-fugitive slave law. Is that all right with everyone? Anyone disagree? That you're anti-fugitive slave law. So then they say, oh, okay. Again, is it important? We're in 1850. Was that important in 1850? What would you say? Would you tell them it's the mark of the beast? Yes. Okay, anyone think no? Absolutely. Good. Mark of the beast. Okay, and then again, same thing, they say mark of the beast. Oh, so is it salvational? What do you want to say? Yes or no, or maybe? Give me
Yes.
some time. Yes, okay. Okay, I'm looking for anyone who disagrees before we move on. So just feel free to put that in the chat. Okay, so we've got this far, 1888 to 1850. Fairly simple compare and contrast. So question, is this kind? Is this a kind? Have you been kind by telling your neighbors this? Have you been nice? What do you think? Because if you just think it through, you've just told them basically, if they believe you, someone says, yes, you've been kind, good. If they believe you, they're basically going to lose their job or lose their business. And of course, that means you may end up homeless, or at least you won't have an income, or it turns your life upside down. So you've been really kind, and you've told them that they need to lose their job and lose their entire life's business. And you've just been really kind and turned their whole world upside down. Tell me if I'm wrong, because it's just my perspective. So they lose their house. If they, can't keep, potentially they could lose their family, because if their spouse isn't on the same side as them and they just think they're going crazy now, joining these Seventh-day Adventists, that's going to cause serious problems, especially when they weren't very well known. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I thought someone wanted to say something. Okay. So potentially lose their family, probably lose their friends. I'd say definitely lose their church. And I can't think of anything else in life or in society that there is to lose. Once you potentially lost your house, you have lost your money, your job, your business, you might lose your family. At least it's going to cause serious family problems. Going to lose your friends, let's face it. And you're going to lose your church. So that's really kind of you guys, of you people, I should say. That's really kind of you people. So just reading the chat. Okay. So maybe we should have made it a little bit softer. What do you think? Anyone think we should have made it softer? So So here we're 144,000, and they would be really right on the other end of the spectrum. So these neighbors are Catholic priests. Can't get much further on the other side than that. And these people are slave owners. Can't get much further away from this message of the Millerites. So somebody says, obey God over men. Okay, someone else I think is agreeing. And it says, you must tell the straight, sobering truth. Good. So no one's saying meet them where they're at or anything like that. No compromise. Good. I agree. Someone saying you shouldn't compromise the message. Okay. So no one's saying, well, you wouldn't say Saturday is the Sabbath, but God doesn't mind. Why don't you keep Sunday a little bit longer? Have a think about it. You know, why don't you pray about it? Because maybe you should meet them where they're at. Maybe you should show them some tolerance, perhaps. Nobody's actually saying that though, but you're still free to disagree. Maybe you should say, well, don't stop pushing for Sunday laws, not quite yet. Just wait till you're comfortable with it. You know, wait till you've adjusted, give it some time. Maybe, or perhaps you should have just ignored this. Maybe when they says, well, what do you believe? You could have just said, we're vegan because we love animals. And then you could have really given a message of love, couldn't you? Could have really been nice and kind. So I'm glad no one's saying that, but don't forget I could be wrong. So let me know what you think. If we're in 1850, we're back in 1850 again, talking to our neighbors, and someone mentioned don't compromise. So keep your neighbors happy. You could have just said, why don't you just keep some slaves for now? Not full emancipation, just keep half of them. Or maybe just whip half of your slaves. Don't whip the other half, just for now. Wait till you get used to it. And then maybe you could just whip them a little bit less hard each day or each week. Just, you know, take baby steps. You could have told them that so that they like you and they get used, they settle into the message. Anyone think that? Or are we still on board? No. Okay. So where is the love in this message? You've just destroyed their lives. You've turned their world upside down. And you're telling me this is nice. So where's the love in this message? So these are Catholic priests. They're very aware of hellfire. And you've just said to them, you're going to burn in hell. And that's love, you're telling me. That's nice. It's in the truth. Good. You're telling the truth to save them. Good. So you can see that if you give a straight, harsh, cutting message, you're showing a lot of love. And so far, nobody has said that they disagree with that or even questioning it. Okay, so now I'm going to try as hard as possible to make some of you feel uncomfortable, because you've just told me that's okay. You've told me that if I try as hard as I can to make you feel uncomfortable this morning, then that means I love you. So I'm going to now do this. And I'm going to take my inkhorn. This is my inkhorn here. And it's not racism and it's not Sunday. So what's the test here today, this morning? What's the
Equality?
test? Equality.
Equality.
This was equality as well. So is it all right to put racism here? Should I put racism? Gender. Good. So gender, I'll just put sexism. So we've got sexism is the test today. I think you probably worked out where I'm going now. If anyone's feeling uncomfortable, I'm sure nobody is, but that might be because when we're talking about 2022, we're talking about you in your house, literally in your house. Look around, okay? That's the reality of it. But it's really easy to tell someone theoretically 100 or whatever, 100 or 200 years ago, this is what they should have done. but they failed. And this is what they should have done. But, you know, they should have obeyed God and not man. They should have stood for the truth. And if anyone was here saying, well, we're vegan, you know, no, here, sorry, saying, well, we're hindsight, exactly. We're vegan because we love animals. Then if you were there, you would have said, no, let's stand for truth. Just give a straight message. So let's do that here then. So sexism. So you invite your neighbors over and one of them or some of them are very clearly overly enslaved by ridiculous beauty standards. Okay, so they're standing, they're new neighbors, we're all being very polite, and they say, what do you believe? What are you going to say? What would you say? So they say, oh, sexism, are you a feminist? And you'll probably say yes. Cat's out the bag, so you may as well say yes. And they say, so what do you believe? You know, does that mean I can't wear makeup? Everyone wears makeup. So maybe you better water it down a bit. No? Someone saying equality. But equality is very broad. So we got quite specific here and here. Apparently it was love to tell them that they're going to burn in hell. That's what you people said.
Gender equality?
Sorry?
Gender equality?
Gender equality. So we have that there. That's good. Sexism. So your neighbors, one or some of them, are very obviously overly enslaved by ridiculous beauty standards, and they're standing in your front room now. And they say, oh, you believe you're anti-sexist, so you're feminist. You're a feminist, are you? And then you're going to tell them, we believe we should not dress to objectify women. Good. Well done. Took a little bit longer to get there once it's 2022, didn't it? No problem. At least we got there. So I was just wondering if you were going to say, no, no, no. They say, well, everyone wears makeup. What, you're telling me I can't wear makeup? You know, or whatever it is. I'm just picking on that. Or would you say, we believe women in our society are forced to compete for male approval every day, enslaved by ludicrous beauty standards that women themselves are conditioned to take seriously. Would you be comfortable giving such a cutting message to someone who's appearing the way they appear, the way I'm describing? Would you be comfortable saying, we believe in a reordering of society, so male supremacy is totally eliminated, socially and economically? Okay, so that's a great way to put it. I didn't think that one up. I'm quoting other people. Okay, don't forget, you have to live next door to these people until you go to prison. So, don't know if you want to upset your neighbors. Okay, so we've got, I guess I'll put feminism, unless anyone can think of a better term. We know there's different types and so forth. That's not my point today. So would you tell them, they say, oh, well, you know, you're a bit extreme. Is it really that important? You're telling me God cares if I care about what other people think of me? Or I like to look nice. Salvational, you want to tell them it's salvational? Okay. So we're in 2022 and they say, okay, well, I'll have a little think about it. Doesn't seem very urgent to me. Doesn't seem like an urgent issue. Yes, Eden to Eden. You would, of course, explain it all. You know, you'd be there for a few hours, I'm sure. Unless they're that offended and they walk out on you. So just say, well, don't worry too much about it. Take a few years to think about it. It's only 2022. Good. Equally created. Good. Okay. So of course you would enter into a discourse. You'd enter into a conversation. And you'd explain how correct and reasonable and how true that your perspective is. Okay. So again, I'll ask again. We're in 2022. Is it all right to say, don't worry too much about it. Take a few years. Have a little think.
No.
No, you don't want to do that. So what do you want to tell them? There's no
Just
time.
no.
Okay, and that's obviously because this is our test, which is, it's really present now, especially if you look at where the mark of the beast law is on the fractals. So you want to tell them that this issue will become the mark of the beast. So if anyone was feeling uncomfortable, I'm sure they weren't, but if they were, I think the problem would be that you would be overly concerned at offending the abuser. You'd be overly concerned at offending the white people here, not the white people, but the slave owners. So you might be thinking, let's just abuse some black people a little bit longer, just so we don't upset the white people or the slave owners. So if we can just get that in our mind, that the problem about not giving a straight message is that we don't want to offend. We want to meet them where they're at. Let's tolerate them a bit longer. And that's because they're the offenders. So I think our job really, we know, is to protect the abused. Okay. So let's adjust this now. Let's make this Elder Tess. Let's make this Elder Tess, and she's inviting her neighbors around. And neighbor comes over and he says, what you got on for today? What are you doing today? And she says, oh, Elder Tess says, have to bake a cake and I have to chop some firewood out there and then I have to fix my car. And he says, oh, well, let me help you. I'll go chop the firewood. So he goes out and he's chopping the firewood and he's looking in every now and again in the kitchen, and Elder Tess is in there making a mess of this cake. It's a vegan cake, so everything's okay. And she's making, you know, she's dropping things and she's burning things, and okay. So then she finishes baking her cake and she goes out to fix her car. And her neighbor goes over to her and he says, Tess, let me help you with that. And she says, oh, thanks very much. You're very helpful. Why is that then? I don't even want to say the answer, okay? But you get the picture, gender roles and so forth. How would Elder Tess react to that? Okay, so I've got someone saying 2022 is not the Sunday law. Things are building towards the issue. So that's true, but things are building towards the issue. So let's confront that next, if that's all right. Don't forget though, we do have fractals. I can fix my car. I can fix my own car. Good. We do have fractals though. So, but I do also do know what you mean. It's not the Sunday law. Okay, so I asked, how do you think Elder Tess would respond to that comment?
Yeah, she would say no thanks.
She'd say no thanks. So I'm going to say in no uncertain terms. I think she would basically do this kind of spirit. She'd have this kind of spirit. Okay, in no uncertain terms would she tell her neighbor what she believes and what she's thinking. Is Elder Tess a nice person? We said that's how you show someone love. And we've already done this here. This is you. So do you think Elder Tess is a nice person? Even though she's going to tell her neighbor in no uncertain terms, he was only trying to be helpful. Yes, I think she's a nice person too. I would have needed,
depends.
I like that one. I would have needed help making the cake. So can you help make the cake instead? Because that's where she really needed help, in the kitchen. And someone else is agreeing. Okay. I actually picked Elder Tess because think she's a particularly nice person. So I didn't think anyone would argue. So apparently, it seems like you can be a nice person. In other words, you can behave nicely, you can be polite, and still give a very cutting, harsh, life-changing, in a bad way, if you know what I mean, temporarily. You can be a nice person, you can be very polite, kind, and give a very cutting and harsh message. So the trick that I don't want you to fall into is that you think that one equals the other. Being a nice person doesn't equal giving a nice, smooth, compromising message. You
Could I
can be
ask
a
a
nice...
question?
Yes, please do.
Okay, well, I kind of have a little bit of a problem with that phrase, meeting people where they are,
Okay.
because I don't understand why that means you would give them permission to continue thinking that, you know, not giving them the truth. I mean, in your explanation, you meet your neighbor and you ask them a question and they ask you a question. Isn't that meeting them where they are? Except for when you answer your question, you're telling them the truth.
So,
And so
you're right.
that's not giving them permission to continue what they're doing, but you're meeting them where they are. They're saying they're Catholic and you say, oh. So I don't know what you say. What did you say? Oh, so you believe, tell me what Catholics believe. And then they ask you what you believe and you tell them the truth.
So yes, I think you're right. I do apologize. I guess it's quite a broad phrase. It can mean different things. And I really didn't explain myself properly. So I do apologize. Let's go to that now. Then someone else can remind me where I was because I'm going to forget. So
Okay.
what I
I'm
was
sorry
thinking,
I didn't ask you sooner, but it kind of started.
that's what I want. I want you to ask and, you know, I was asking for people to tell me if they disagreed or if they had any questions, so that's great. So I'm going to do it this way. So this is what I meant. This was the way I was using it. 144,000 and your neighbor. Okay, so we'll use this example. So you're poles apart, you're at the opposite end of the spectrum to your neighbor, you find yourself standing in the same room and they are just obviously obsessed with ludicrous beauty standards. And so they say, well, what does a radical feminist believe? And you tell them. So what I mean is at that point, you can meet them where they are. I should have said maybe meet them halfway or something like that. So again, you're going to tell them, well, why do you bother with Botox? Let's just, or, you know, did you know high heels are unhealthy or something like that? They're bad for your back. You could just take baby steps is what I meant. Does that make more sense? Or do you even agree?
I think I agree, but I don't know exactly understand. Okay, so they say, let's see. Okay, they say you're a radical feminist. What does that believe in? You say the thing about how, you know, women shouldn't have to do something to make themselves fit into some mold, to make themselves attractive to men, or, you know, on the job, in their jobs or anything like that. They should be able to just be themselves, just without enhancements to modify their appearance any more than anybody else, a man or anyone else. Just, you know, you are, make yourself clean and dress healthily, and a woman shouldn't have to do any extra beauty steps to make themselves attractive or to get a job or anything.
So,
but all those other things are true also, that high heels are not healthy.
So I think the way I meant it, meeting them where they're at, is meeting them where they might accept what I'm saying, what they're ready to hear. Let me see something.
Well, how do you even know what they're ready to hear?
Well,
You know,
it was a theoretical situation, but in real life, you would be talking to them, seeing their expressions, you'd see the way they're dressed and so forth.
Oh, you would make assumptions based on what their appearance.
So we're getting into reading the heart. We've been through that before, haven't we? Okay, so I'm not very good at switching around. It's just a bad trait I have. So let me stick with this at first. So the way I was using that phrase might be differently, which I apologize for again. What I meant is only tell them what they can handle for now. So they quite clearly can't handle radical feminism in its entirety. So just take baby steps with them and tell them just what won't offend them. Can I finish? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just don't offend them. Tell them just what they can handle for today. So maybe just say, well, you just don't need, and then you might pick the most extreme, the Botox or something. And they say, but I can carry on wearing my makeup or whatever. I'm kind of sorry to pick on a lady over this example. I should have really picked on a man with this example. But anyway, and we said we wouldn't do that here or here. But here it gets a little bit more personal. Okay, I've lost my train of thought. You do continue.
Well, I think we just maybe are understanding that phrase differently.
Okay.
You know, I don't think that you should water anything down. I mean, but on the other hand, I think you should let them say something and then ask, you know, the conversation should lead to, you know, and it should be appropriate in that conversation, you know, an opening, an opportunity to tell them the truth. And it should be the truth from the beginning, not little baby steps.
Okay. So you should listen to them. Of course, I didn't actually say that, but that would be a normal conversation. And you should wait for an opening, which I think I said, because they say, what do you believe?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that part. So then actually we are opportunities will arise. It's not like, we're not gonna knock on doors or anything like that. We're going to meet people. Opportunities are going to arise. When the opportunity presents itself, you tell them the truth, not baby steps. Which was,
I think that was built into the example, because you've just moved into a new neighborhood and invited them round. So you didn't knock on their door and just go, you know, you should be a radical feminist or something.
Right.
So I think that was all built into it. So.
Okay.
Anything else, or did I miss anything?
No, I think it's mainly that particular phrase. I didn't understand it the way you said it.
I probably said it wrong, to be honest. Okay. So let me see. So the point I was just making is that I didn't want anyone okay, so someone says, God led us with baby steps. We cannot jump to the summary. So I'm not sure what you mean, because would you sit down and show them line upon line, Daniel 11:40, 25:20? Because that's how we were led. But I think we were being trained, weren't we, to give this message. I'll let you comment further if you would like. I'll just read it again. God led us with baby steps. We cannot jump to the summary, because we know we're not meant to summarize our message. to each other.
That's just the point I'm making, because when you try to summarize it, you're beating people over the head with something that they're not going to be able to accept. I don't think most of us would accept it from where we were at if all of a sudden we were just given the conclusion of the matter. And my other point that it was 2022 and that we're not at the actual Sunday law yet. These issues are obviously percolating and building to this crescendo. And we have to recognize that, that God, as we meet the people where they're at, we're going to start teaching them some of the base truths that's going to help them to come to the same conclusions or understand what we're understanding. But just as the point that the elders have pointed out, we're not supposed to just decide to give somebody a summary and say, this is my loving summary of what you need to know, and you better know it now, or you're going to be lost. And I see that's the wrong way to approach this whole thing.
Okay, so when we were here wasn't such an issue, because I think we understood that this was a theoretical example, and obviously conversations don't actually go that way. I didn't really think I needed to explain that, but if someone just doesn't storm out of the room, so to speak, then obviously they would say, well, where's that in the Bible? And then you'd be able to take them through what you're saying is baby steps. You take them through their Bible study, which would be appropriate, because, okay. And then they'd say, well, wait, this verse doesn't mean that. And the Lord's Day and all the arguments you know about Sabbath. Or they would point to all the places in the Bible. It would be a conversation. I honestly didn't mean that this whole thing takes 2 minutes, because I presented it in 2 minutes. But you didn't have that problem here, though. You didn't say, well, wait, hang on. We don't just give them a summary of the Sabbath. And I assume that's because you knew you would take them through a lengthy conversation. And of course, it might even span a few days, weeks, months.
Well, if you get right to the time when the figurative Sunday law shows up, then obviously all the issues have been out there, and it's the crux time, and people have to know where the truth is. But again, as it's being pointed out, we're in the business of harvesting, but they still have to be led to understand the truth as time goes on. And I'm not trying to just change the direction you're trying to go with this. I was just looking at 1850 as actually the Sunday law in that period of time, and around 1888 was the actual Sunday law in that period of time, and we're at 2022, and 2022 is not the Sunday law yet. I mean, that means that we have some time to work with the people, and whether they're willing to work with us or not. And we know that the vast majority of them are going to be 100% against us, and they're not going to change their mind.
So when was the Sunday law for the Levites? We'll take the Nethinim. We'll take the last group. When's the Sunday law for the Nethinim?
That's the big Sunday law.
Is it?
The one that's fine.
Do we need to do the fractals?
Panium.
Sorry? You do?
Panium.
Panium, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I chose 2022 for a reason. So if you just, it's hard to remember everything without your notes and everything, but check your notes. I think you'll find 2014 was the Sunday law for the priests. 2019, I'm losing the chat, sorry, I'll scroll back. 2019 was the Sunday law for the Levites. And 2021 was actually the Sunday law for the Nethinim.
Okay, thank you. I stand corrected.
So okay, so I guess that actually answers it. The urgency and so forth. Anyway, let me scroll back, and anyone else, let me know if I didn't answer or. I think they meant they wouldn't drop everything on them at one time. And that's maybe where I build in this long conversation. Let me get to that actually. Aren't the priests just harvesting? I was thinking more along those lines, yes. So I'll just read you this comment. Aren't priests just harvesting? Levites and Nethinims are ploughed, and they get their early and latter rain from external events. Therefore, we don't have to train them. And I know what you mean, because we still have to harvest them, talk to them, teach them, but we don't have to train them to make their decision, maybe you could say. We just tell them what the mark of the beast is. So I'm just reading that comment. Don't forget, they've made all their decisions according to external events. They've already had their great test by which their eternal destiny is decided, which was 2021 for the Nethinim. So I feel like I want to spend more time on that. I feel like maybe some people don't quite understand that. Maybe we can do it another time or in the questions. So someone wanted to raise their hand. Feel free to make a comment.
So I was just thinking along the same lines as Bob was thinking. You know, the two first scenarios, the law has already been passed in when you're talking to your neighbor, and yet today the law hasn't been passed. But before 1850, 1844, or we're not going to avoid the subject of racism. We know racism is wrong. We're going to be saying that slavery is wrong, that's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're not we're not going to avoid that subject. When racism comes up, we're going to hit it. Same thing with the Sunday law. An actual Sunday law wasn't even passed, but we knew that the issues around Sunday and forcing a Bible in every classroom as a subject, we knew those things were wrong, and before they happened, we're still going to be talking about them. So just like today, the mark of the beast law isn't here, but there's plenty of things pointing at it and what it's going to be, and that it's coming, and that's the issues that we should be talking about, and we shouldn't be avoiding them just because we haven't a law on the books or being voted on at the moment, right?
Okay, so we're focusing on the dispensation or the date rather than the concept. So I did already mention that the Sunday law is here. Okay, just because we have different fractals, and they also had different fractals in this time. Okay, so what was the Sunday law for the Millerites church? Okay, that was July 21st. And what was the Sunday law for the Millerites world? That was October 22nd, 1844. So I'm not too worried about defending the time. I'll show you why in a second. I was intending to get there. But even if I did have to, I think I would just say that the Nethinim have had their Sunday law. I've got a feeling we're not aware of that. And the other thing is, I don't have a good memory, so Elder Tessie's most recent presentation, she talked about how the Sunday law isn't just one neat and tidy law, necessarily, that just goes through Congress and we might go, that's it. The reason we thread stories and do waymarks and everything is because we see that how these things are progressing and how late in the day we are. I feel a bit like we might be saying, well, we're not at the Sunday law yet, so we don't need to be too cutting or too harsh, is the words I used for this one. And nobody objected then. Anything else? I'll be very honest with you, because we're all in the same boat. We're all in Noah's Ark. You caught me by surprise with that one. I didn't think anybody would be thinking there's not as much urgency because we're only in 2022. So anyway, let's move on. I'm just telling you what I'm thinking out loud, that's all. Where are we for time? We're okay for time. So this person, this neighbor of Elder Tess's is outside of the movement. So what would it be different if someone was inside of the movement? What if it was me? What if I was there? Would she say, how would she react if I was the person chopping wood and then I felt like she would need help with her car? Would she show me tolerance because I'm at a different level of equality, understanding equality than she is? And I am. She understands equality much better than I do. So maybe she should show me some tolerance or some grace. No? Okay. So we don't need to show people tolerance and grace on this issue. So I don't mean she's caught me eating a pizza. She's going to kick me out of the movement because there's some cheese on it or something. Apparently I have a raised hand, which feel free to, whoever raised their hand, feel free to say what you need to say.
Aaron, perhaps the scenario that we have here is not too realistic. For example,
okay.
We instead of inviting a neighbor or someone that is totally an outsider, we have to start with the Seventh-day Adventist people, right? And that is going to be our target people. So if we address this rather than to a Nethinim, but to a Seventh-day Adventist, I think is going to make it easier.
Okay. Except these were Catholic priests and these were slave owners. Again, they're at the opposite end of the spectrum. But that's okay. So long as, if you want to say that your Adventist friends come over to see your new house, I'm actually talking about watering down a message or not, whoever it's to and whatever year we're in. So last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago now, we were in a different year. I don't think that makes any difference. I'm wondering why we're focusing on the wrong thing. Do you remember I said if some of you start feeling uncomfortable, I've just done a back-to-back comparison, but now this is you in your front room. It's really easy to tell someone else to be courageous. Okay, so the only other thing I should say is don't fall for the straw man. Okay, once you say you said, give a cutting, harsh, truthful message here. Don't fall for the straw man if someone turns around and says, well, we can't be rude, because as I said, like with Elder Tess, no one's being rude, or what was the other thing I've heard? Anyway, don't fall for the straw man. I'm not saying be rude or impolite or not nice. Okay, so again, you can still behave in a nice, polite manner, but give a cutting, straight truth message. So let's do this line. So usually we draw that's my second advent because Jesus comes on a cloud. So usually we draw it this way, but I'm trying to make a point today. By the way, this is our line now. This is the line of the 144,000. And if you'll notice the way Elder Tess draws the line, it looks a little bit more like this. Okay, maybe that should even be further up. I'm not time setting, don't start measuring the screen. Okay, so this is what we've got here. Increase of knowledge. increase of knowledge, formalization, test. So just to try to answer the point about what year we're in. It's not quite the same as these years, so maybe we should behave differently, give a different type of message or whatever was said. This is a test. So what kind of test did we used to say this was? So we used to say it's like a pregnancy test. This is where you find out if you're pregnant or not. We used to call it a litmus test. So what do you actually test it on? When do you actually get tested? When do you actually get tested? Does anyone know?
When we hear the message.
So when you hear the message, you get tested. What was your question? I'm sorry, I can't see the raised hands. And I know what happens if I move my screen. I'll never get it back. So this is a test. What are we tested on? Let me say where in that case. Someone's asking where or when? If I can just say, what are we tested on the board? Someone else still didn't hear my question. Tell me I've muted. So this is your test. What are we tested on? Gender equality. So on the board, on this line, where are we tested? What are we tested on? I don't know how else to say it, sorry. I'm not going to answer this one because I'm starting to think this is the problem. I'm starting to realize why I've been getting those questions. So no, we're not. It depends what you mean by dispensation. On this board, point me to a waymark, one single waymark that we're tested on here. Lots of water today. Good. So we're tested on the formalization. Okay, so this is what we're tested on. We tested on the formalization. As we used to say, I don't know if it's the best way of putting it, but this is just like a pregnancy test. Okay, so this is where you find out if you've passed or failed, but you've already, oh, I have to use such careful words with, this is what you're tested on. So you've already gone past the point that we're being tested on. So what I'm saying is from now onwards, you should start to see two classes of worshippers, okay? If you want to know what that looks like, if you want to know what the omega looks like, you just look to the alpha. In other words, you just look to the past. So I can take you to other formalizations in our history. We could talk about 2012. How did that look? Or 2018. So in 2012, we know now who's fallen away because they rejected 2012. But what was actually happening in 2013, let's say? Okay. What's happening was there was just some, I say murmuring maybe, some mocking. What happened in 2018? There was actually just some mocking. Some murmuring, but everyone looked like they were on board. What happened in the Alpha of ancient Israel in the time of Moses? When I talk about murmuring and mocking, was it Korah, Dathan, and Abiram that were attacking the leadership? And they were saying, we're all holy, aren't we? We're all holy, so we're all equal. So they had a problem with the leadership. So if this was 2012, where was the resentment at, if I put it that way? It was at Elder Parminder. And in 2018, who was being mocked? And they were trying to change her message. They were trying to change Elder Tess's message, put the emphasis elsewhere. Elder Tess. So today, where do you expect the attacks to be? On the true leaders, surely, on organization. So this is actually what you're tested on. This is actually what you're tested on, and we're past that. So you have already reacted to your test. All that's going to happen here after the Sunday law is you're just going to show your true colors. Okay, it's not too late. You can certainly turn it around. But if you find yourself at loggerheads with, I'll say, the leadership or organization or the board over organizational issues. Okay, I want to be very careful. If you have a problem with Kathy or Elaine or Elder Chiquetta, and it's over organizational issues, the message, what class of worship are you starting to portray at this point? Because I can't emphasize enough. We're tested on this. That was 2021. Okay, point made. So how are we for time? I think I'll keep going. So I have heard, we're talking about being nice, and I have heard things said like, where's the love in the message? We already asked that question here. The love was in the straight truth. You know, where's the heart work in this message? Where's Jesus in this message? So if we take this example that there's two classes of worshippers right now, and you'll know if you're failing, because as I said, you'll be at loggerheads with leadership, same as it was in 2012 and 2018. And what tends to happen is, we'll say a female leader will tell you something, and you'll start to push back. You'll start to resent that. And what I'm saying is you yourself might rise up. There might be a lack of humility to take orders from a lady, if I put it that way. So you might start rejecting authority or rejecting correction. You might start pushing back a little bit and being a bit stubborn. So now who's being nice? If you're being stubborn and you lack humility and you start rejecting correction, let me just ask that rhetorical question. Now who's being nice? Is it the person, the leader, or is it Elder Tess giving the straight message? Or is it the person pushing back and being stubborn? So I think I'll finish on this point. Let me make some room. So if I did that, you know, and that, so we all know who that is. Tell me, who's this?
Us?
That's us. So priests and Levites. So if it's us, let me put in some names here. We'll put Kathy. This is Elaine. We'll say Alyssa. Of course, I have to put myself in there. I want to do that. And whoever else. You put your own name in there. Who's this? Who's that?
Babylon?
This is Babylon. And who are the 10 toes?
The world?
The world. Let me go to Daniel 2. Anyone know who the 10 toes are? Nobody?
UN.
The United Nations. I'll just give you a reference. It's not my intention to study this. Daniel 2:41 talks about the feet and the toes. Verse 42, the toes, iron and clay. Verse 43, again, still talking about the iron, the clay, and the toes. And then verse 44 says, and in the days of these kings. So just the references. So these are the kings. And Revelation 17 says 10 kings. And these are 10 toes. Okay, so this is the UN. What happens next? Okay, this is the loud cry. So do you really believe that Elaine is going to take down the United Nations? Okay, so Alyssa, do you really believe that your message is going to be so strong that in a few short years, I don't know how many, you're going to be taking down the United Nations and the whole Babylonian system?
As much as I'd like to say yes, it'd probably be no.
Okay, so then that's very honest of you, but you'd have to think why, and then you'd have to change. Is your message really, are your tidings out of the east and out of the north really going to trouble him? Are they really going to trouble the king of the north? Enough that he shall go forth with great fury to destroy you and to utterly make away many. So I think I'll leave it there for today. Still got some time. Any thoughts?
I do have a thought. So I'm trying to find where I wrote it. As I was listening to the questions that the guys had, I'm just wondering if their questions aren't coming from more of a sense of their discomfort with dealing with inequality within themselves first before taking it to others.
So I've said it already, but just in response to that, the only my thoughts is I was surprised we concentrated on what year we were in. That's all. I was a bit surprised we didn't know that the Sunday law for the Nephilim was already passed.
Oh, yes, I thought I found my other question. So in your scenarios that you brought up about, you know, talking with people in 1850, 1888, 2020, I noticed a theme, a consistent pattern of them coming and asking us questions rather than us just declaring, okay, this is how I believe. If you believe differently, then you're beholden to the beast. I don't know if you're understanding where I'm coming from. Like there seemed to be a pattern in your scenarios where the people were coming to us, or we were inviting people in, but not telling them first what we believed, but rather asking for them to ask us.
So maybe my scenarios were a little too overly simplified, or maybe I didn't think them through enough, but that wasn't really a point. Personally, I don't know how it looks when we go to the Levites and the Nethinim. Like, do we really just get a text from the elders saying, everyone go to their local church? Or do we wait? Like, I don't know how it looks. So that wasn't really my point about who asks who. I don't know. My point wasn't really the dates. It wasn't really who asks who. I just find it striking that when I did this, everyone was fine. And all I did was the same here. No one was saying, no. Okay, thinking aloud. Yeah. I'll just read somebody's comment. Thinking aloud, quote, "Your life has not been marked with humbleness of mind and meekness of deportment. You love God in word, but not in deed and in truth. Your dignity is easily hurt." I think that's probably 2 Testimonies 173.2. That was somebody else's post.
Well, I wanted to make a comment. I'm not sure, I don't want to get myself in more trouble. But yeah, I think I'm looking for a more literal instruction on what we do and how we do it. And I think you just mentioned that you don't even know how this is going to look, you know, as far as, you know, how we go to the Nethinims, or how we go to the Levites, I mean, and then the Nethinims, you know, a specific literal way to do it. And so, I mean, I don't know, maybe we won't even get a specific literal way. I know that each one of us are led by the Holy Spirit, and God opens up, and I guess Holy Spirit opens up the opportunities, and we need to be prepared to follow that leading. So, but I guess, anyway, back to my point was I was kind of looking and hoping for a literal instruction. But I just wanted to mention that personally in my life and with Jim, when we visit people mainly in our families, but you know, sometimes it's people not in our families, we do talk about, you know, sexism and radical feminism and things like that, and well, in my family, we have a lot of feminists, and we have a lot of women. But let's put it this way: the women are feminists, and the men are not so much. But they tolerate us, in quotes, and I don't know, they kind of think it's, you know, funny or something, I guess. But we went to my sister's in Florida we were there for New Year's Day. And my sister's in a wheelchair, so she couldn't sit at the head of the table. It wasn't convenient. And my niece wanted to sit beside her. And my husband, Jim, and our grandson was there. And we've been talking about feminism and sexism and stuff. And I just said, okay, well, I'm sitting at the head of the table because I'm a radical feminist. And it occurred to me, why shouldn't I sit at the head of the table? You know, so I did, and we talked about it, and nobody was offended. You know, they all agreed, you know, that we're equal, and it shouldn't matter who sits at the head of the table. So I'm just saying that as an example of something that we're doing now, but we're doing it, you know, with people we know, our family. We're not. And I did have another incident with our son, who's a Seventh-day Adventist. And for some reason, he didn't get his booster shot and for the vaccine. And I was really surprised at that. And then he got a sore throat. And I got worried because he's going to the Seventh-day Adventist church there. And I've been there to that church. And I know the leadership there and that they are anti-vaccination. And I just told him straight up, don't start drinking the Kool-Aid from that at that church. You know, be aware of what we've been talking about, you know. And so I don't know if that's being kind or straight talk or what. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily speak that way to someone I just met. But anyway, I just wanted to share that stuff. Thank you.
So something just came to mind. Somebody gave me some really good advice once, which I thought was just excellent advice. And I remembered it. They said, if you're not sure what to do, what to say, just replace sexism with Sunday worship. That's some of the best advice I've had while I've been in this role. So that's all I did. That's why I came up with this structure. Then I thought, obviously, why not throw in 1850, because it's the same. I think the reason we didn't have any sort of questions or comments when I was doing this is because today nobody cares about Sunday. You're not going to offend anyone, are you? You're not going to tread on any toes. I don't mean those. So I could go upstairs to my family now and go down the road to the store, start telling everyone about Sabbath. No one's going to get offended. And that's because it's not a test for our dispensation. But that's all I did. I just replaced Sunday with sexism.
So it would seem like if we were in 1850 or we were in 1888, what we might have just learned is what we would have done then had we been there.
You'd be as nervous about the Sunday message if we were in 1888. I mean, like the Ku Klux Klan, etc. They're a lot more scary than your neighbor who you had a problem with. I say that loosely, who you had a problem with. Okay, I guess it's time. So let's close in prayer. Almighty God in heaven, we thank you for the message of the hour. And we know that all truth is important, but what the people really need is present truth. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming, and we hope that the rest of your Sabbath day is full of blessings, and we again thank you for coming. Happy Sabbath.